questions that have been sent to me, and maybe there might be one to you that I'm not aware of. Shall we start with what you've received?
Sure. Yes. The only one I've received is the one in the chat to everyone.
Okay,
Shall we begin with that?
that'd be fine.
4 days of no phone, no laptop, no books, and no talking makes for a very restless, angry mind.
Mm.
What do I do when my mind says, it's okay, read a book, no one will know?
Yeah, very much appreciate this question. When we have in-person session, I mean, I've done this only once now at Mountain Cloud, but everywhere else I've been, there are instructions given at the beginning, a real invitation to set aside everything, really leave it all at the threshold to the, gate or the zendo. Understanding that whatever those cares are, whatever those distractions are, they'll be there for you at the end, should you feel inclined to pick them up again. And so this question, thank you, Dan, comes from someone who's obviously heard the instruction, no reading or writing, no electronics, put away the phone, turn it off. Some Zen centers I know will actually have a ritual of people, um, as soon as they're willing, actually offering up their phone for the week uh, of a retreat. And so disconnecting in a way that I think many of us don't realize until we try it, how insidious the habit is of feeling connected to that device. So I think it's terrific to give yourself the invitation, if you can, this instruction. No phone, no computer, no reading or writing. 4 days. Thoroughly plunged in to this practice without those habitual, sort of habituated distractions. To be sure, they can be tools, wonderful tools, but when we give them up, we see the addiction. And I just want to make a little asterisk by that as I say it for these online retreats, when we are, some of us here, I'm so impressed. This is a first retreat. And for others, many, you're in the context of your home, your family, you leave your room and you go out, and there you are. And that's a different kind of practice. So even though I'm a big fan of this kind of unplugging and willingness to minimize the intake of information, of stimulation, and allow yourself to really soak, of course, in this deepening stillness, but also in whatever comes up. If possible, that's ideal. It's not ideal if you have a family, then it's just there is a real tradition around that, and it's worth an experience. So for sure, during the main block of the day, even if you're with your family and it's possible for you, unless there's an emergency, carve out that space. No new input. So great appreciation for this question, to take that to heart, to recognize that it's possible in this context to practice this. And then the chance to see what happens, what comes up. So just because of not feeding that habit, we could say addiction, in the sense of our many addictions, to see that reaction of anger and restlessness and anger. What an opportunity to just honestly witness that, to sit and let that arise and have a chance to see it. And rather than, pushing it away, this one teacher I often quote, Sylvia Ostertag, she has a beautiful poem about, rather than pushing away those things that we somehow judge or would avoid, to look right through them into the silence. So often what happens with something like restlessness or anger, when you allow it some space, it arises. Somehow just in seeing it, you can see through it. And in that transparency, it may become very particulate and it may disperse. And that's helpful to have a chance to see. First of all, wow, this is bringing up anger. you know? What is that? What really is that? And if it doesn't disperse, I really appreciate this teaching Henry offers, and other teachers as well, to notice, if you can, the sensation in the body. Where is the contraction? Anger comes up. Where is that in your body? Restlessness. Well, okay, where does that sort of show up in the body? And when we can find that and allow that some space, breathe into that, be with that, then there's another level of opening and freedom that can come. So I think, wow, what a great chance to experience restlessness and anger. And to notice the knot around that habit. And I know who asked this question, and I know that kind of serious practice is going on, really earnest. And this question comes out of that. The other part of it, though, what do I do with that part of my mind that says, oh, go ahead and read, who's going to know? Yeah, whenever the who's going to know question comes up, it's like, ding, you'll know. There's this wonderful opportunity to check in, with your own sense of authenticity and really check, is this nurturing for that? Is this, again, an unusual, maybe somebody who's at Mountain Cloud is sitting this whole retreat and so thoroughly immersed, and in that case, I would really not read. Why disturb that? um, even if you're, just sort of doing the main block of the day, if there's something that comes up for you and you say, well, it wouldn't hurt anybody to do that, it's it's maybe an invitation right there to see what it would be like not to do that, just for 4 days. And again, have the opportunity to see what comes up and where it is in your body. Um, I mean, this is not so much an instruction for me as just mirroring back what I hear in this question. Um, when we're trying, I think there's a great um, logic strategy to no reading or writing. The tradition is, unless your teacher, you know, suggests to you something. So, in an in-person session, we'd be doing doksan or retreat, one-to-one with the teacher. You might very well want to leave that and make some notes, which would be very, very normal to do. And if there were a question, you could ask the teacher, is it okay if I do this? Um, but by giving yourself every chance for this settling to continue. Henry described it so well, just guiding us. I believe it was yesterday, early on, just the surface of the water being turbulent, and all this gusty wind, and what an experience to be there. Oh, this is familiar. And then gradually in sitting, it's just like you sink down into this water, and you can get down a bit and there's still a sense of the turbulence that's going on the surface, but you're sinking down and down, and comes to a point where it's deep enough that it doesn't matter what's going on the surface. You're not tossed about. And I would suggest taking every opportunity, having set aside these days, to taste that and explore it. We don't know, and it's even though, many of us have been doing now for 13 months, at least 1 4-day a month, it's still so precious. So yeah, that's just my feeling. I thought, on the one hand, what great practice to have all of this come up and have a chance to really see it. And also, oh, maybe I would pause at the question of, who would this hurt? Who would know? Yeah, thank you for the question. It looks like we have some more. There were a couple that were addressed to me. Maybe I'll just quickly speak to them. Let's see. One was somebody had been listening to the talk this morning and engaged around koans, and the internet connection went out, and so the question was, it cut out just as I was talking about koans in a more general way, just calling up some images of this atomic acorn, this fulcrum, this sense of being, sort of suddenly out of the bottom of a well and up into a full view, every direction, with no end. I mentioned being like a midwife. Those were just some analogies and they were all about koans in general. So this person asked, what koan was I talking about? Which is a fair question because I mentioned a number of them in the course of that talk. But that was just a general, you know, what is this, this language of a different order, and how does it function? Uh, these turning words, these words that can bring about such a shift, that are so much about being, becoming the koan, um, rather than certainly discursively figuring it for sure, or doing anything. Some people joke about Zen. You're a human being, not a human doing. Um, that is certainly the case with koan study. So I was just trying to get at some of that on the way to talking about a couple of specific koans. Um, so not much missed there. Um, there's another question that's been rolling around a couple of people, and it's the latter half of this. When practicing with koans, does one find a koan that resonates and stick with it, or do you change koans from time to time? Um, and I know somebody asked also about, do you have to be assigned one by a teacher, or can you pick one for yourself? This is common. I, my sense of this is shifting, and part of it is, frankly, this amazing opportunity to work with Henry. Um, and like many here, I've found my way to the Sam Harris app personally so that I could hear Henry's, koan study there. And that is frankly different territory from my own training. Um, I came up in Sambo Zen with a sense that it's fine to read and there's nothing off limits. Um, so, I had read The Three Pillars of Zen, and that has a lot of talk about koans and awakening experiences. And, before I ever started a serious practice, a committed practice, but it would not have occurred to me to assign myself a koan. That seemed like something to receive from a teacher in a context of a relationship with a teacher. And indeed, for me, that first encounter when I received the koan Mu was very strong and important. And it mattered a lot to me to be given this by a teacher who I then checked in with. I was very fortunate that I could regularly for many years. And whatever I did in terms of koans, it was always with the guidance of a teacher. A couple of things. One is, for those of you who've been on Waking Up, that app, and heard Henry's very inviting, accessible guidance, guided meditations, guidance, taking up just sort of these little kernels of these many different koans. You get from that a sense of, oh, this might be, I'm drawn to this, and it might actually be a helpful tool, a welcome kind of something that you could sort of drop into the very still open water of quiet sitting. A caution there would be if you're taking up a koan and chewing on it or figuring it, count your breaths or label, very, very basic. That's really just going to divide you. But if I've also known a few students who've said, Mu came and got me. I could not but sit with it. And then finally to receive it from a teacher was just this huge relief, but might have been somebody who was sitting with it already. I don't think that koan training can be done without a relationship with the teacher. But this sense of just being drawn to a koan and sort of letting it, hang on the hook in the room where you sit or the back of your mind, or fall like a leaf into the still pond of your sitting, I think that's okay. When we were years ago at Joshu's temple in China, a wonderful opportunity, a group of Sambo Zen teachers and advanced students had the opportunity to go there for a week with our abbot, and really had a chance to meet the abbot of Joshu's temple, this young Ming Hai at the time. Amazing character. Person of character, person of virtue. You could just sense it. Stunning to meet him. Young abbot. And we got a chance to talk to the monks. And this is Soto tradition. And there, they might have one koan for a lifetime or one for 10 years. And, that is so different from my own training and experience. But they would only see, Doksan was not a regular thing. Every few months or maybe once a year. So very, very different way of being with a koan. So my own sense of this is opening up. I still feel, a little ambivalent because of how one can get pulled into discursively figuring koans, in which case it's so much more true to sit and count or rest in the breath, and not engage the mind in that way. But everything that I've said still holds. It's much more fluid than just that. And I've known people who have read the koan collections, and I thought, oh, that's crazy, but they've said, this is really enriching my practice and it's my life. And, things are fluid and changing. And of course, but it's great to ask these questions. And if you can, keep coming back. And if you can, find a teacher. Sorry, that was a long answer. And that did cover, though, the next one, direct to me, about do you have to be assigned one or can you pick one? Yeah, do you need a relationship with the teacher? So, yeah, I highly recommend a relationship with a teacher. Okay, back to you, Christian.
Well, this one relates to what you've just been talking about. This morning's talk has made me more excited to do koan work. I know that I'm not ready yet and that my teacher, you, will tell me individually when I'm ready to begin. Is there a typical range of time one spends sitting daily before beginning on koans?
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know who asked this. Uh, there is, suddenly comes to mind a student who got in touch and had been sitting quite seriously and seemed to me ready, to really start with a koan. Uh, Part of that is your aspiration. Um, Henry's been talking about this. If it's this wonderful, realization that this practice can bring well-being, can make us more loving in the world, can make us help us navigate our lives in ways that support others and ourselves better. You know, that is wonderful in and of itself, not necessarily chomping at the bit for a koan, but when somebody comes with a sort of sense of, the ground tilled. So sitting is consistent and settled down. Um, yeah, it's like a field that's sort of open and fallow in a way, ready. Uh, so I was, and then there's a kind of urgency. I've used this phrase, hair on fire. This sense somehow in some way that this practice is really about resolving, well, it says resolving the matter of life and death, um, or coming to this, true peace, this sense of who I am really and what is this life, ever ongoing, but in some sense, you're going after that. That's, the hair on fire. I want to be my true self. That's where the koans can be most helpful. But I went, one student, I was touched by this, said, I want to play my scales. It was somebody like a musician. I want to make sure that I've, done this work first. And for that person, when finally it was just, I just couldn't hold back. Here comes the koan. Um, it came in very quickly. Um, it's each student is different, and it's not. There's no criticism in this. It's just sort of feeling our way around having the soil tilled and a sense of readiness where it feels that this would really be helpful and fitting. Like, we heard today about this teaching accordingly. You know, I hope you heard that at the end of the day, that's not, of course, as a teacher, one is always hoping that happens. And when it does, it's an amazing, it's not about me. No, it's this dharma. Somehow it happens. So it's finding that accordingly. I think that if you're a student with a teacher and you feel, you're drawn to a koan, ask about it. Absolutely ask about it. Okay.
I'm curious about the length of the retreat. I've heard that 1 week sessions are usually very difficult on days 2 and 3 and blissful afterwards. Isn't a 4 day retreat therefore pure difficulty?
I hope not. I don't think so. There are, it's interesting that there are these patterns, and it's by no means the same for everyone. Sometimes when you're on a 7-day retreat and at the end of the day, there's this closing comment and the teacher will say something about how, this is typically a difficult day. If you happen to have had one, it's so helpful to say, yeah, oh, this is kind of normal. Day one, you come in, it's such a relief to just sit down and you basically settling in. Um, it's very clear what to do, and it kind of takes over. And it's possible then that the second day, when it seems like everything should be, on a roll, and it's not, that's more challenging. Um, and I have heard there's a hump that you get over, and then it's just, it gets so much deeper. I mean, I have been on many week-long retreats where that day in the middle even will be a quiet day, no talk, no doksan, just sitting. Everybody's sitting, and it is so deep and still, and then it just flows on in an ever greater depth and ease to the end, but absolutely not for everybody. And as Henry said earlier, it's you know um, moment to moment our sitting changes. It's so fluid, and it's a chance to really experience the reality of constant change. um, i I think that the timing when you go from 7 days to 4 days really shifts, and also um, it may depend on how you're doing the retreat. Being at home and going out, if you're all alone in a set aside designated space, that might be one way to experience a 4 day sitting morning, sitting night, just thoroughly soaked in this. um, I would think would have its own effect and its own kinds of challenges in terms of this, uh, you know, feeling like you thought it would be easier, but here I am in all of this activity, and then somehow I'm free of it. Um, I think that would vary with uh, how one can do the retreat. And that's not a comment on how to do it. It's, just sort of to see, uh, well, I guess what I would caution here is to remain in this space of the unconditioned. So without an expectation, like this day is going to be hard, that day is going to be easier, blissful, uh, nothing to counteract bliss like it's expectation. It's so wonderful not to know, and to really trust that whatever's going on, it will change. So when it's difficult, just remaining there, holding the space, and you know, this breath, just this breath. And also in those moments of bliss, as soon as we think, oh, now I've got it, now I know how to sit, you know, that's a guaranteed interruption. It's okay because it can pass and, settle back in. Um, I do not think that a 4 day retreat is set up on this same map or pure difficulty. Maybe tomorrow Henry can say something about his sense of if there's a kind of a correlate for expectations for a 4 day. again, because we're doing this in, globally in different time zones in different ways, it makes me reluctant to even speculate about what that would be, but just to encourage us all. What is this? Right now. And if it's only now, no problem. Really. Okay.
There's about 3 more questions.
Let's see what happens.
Is it better not to take any notes in Taisho's and Q&As?
This is a matter of debate, and in some sanghas, it's allowed, and in others not. I grew up in a sangha where nobody did this. So the first time that I was at a larger session, a retreat, and people who I considered quite advanced were pulled out their notebooks and started just taking down notes. That would not be my way, especially since the talks at Mountain Cloud and the Q&As are recorded. So what if, by taking notes, you sort of throw yourself into a discursive space. I don't know about the Q&A so much, but for the talk, I'm not comfortable doing that. I must admit, in this situation, when Henry is talking and I want to be able to tie in, and resonate and even draw from what he said, I sometimes will take some notes. There's no other situation where I do that during a talk. There's something about letting that language just wash over you. It can have an impact in a very different way. You may not remember nearly as much, but what strikes you will go to the heart. And so I prefer not. And I personally find it a little distracting when I'm listening to a talk here we are at home, what does it matter? Everything's so different. But if you're all together in a zendo, I much prefer no notes, personally. Again, up to you, and different in different places. Check it out. Okay.
For reading outside of retreat, can you recommend an intro type of book for newcomers? I've heard of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yeah, Mountain Cloud has this really nice, I think, robust intro zone. And also under the about, if you drop down to becoming a student, there are some recommended books there. And Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind is one of them. Zen, The Authentic Gate, if you're interested in, a really clear, concise collection of chapters by Yamada Kon Roshi that Henry edited together with John Reek. That is a lovely book, and one that you can, read a little bit of and sit with it. I go back to it every now and then. I find that helpful. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is really fun. Not so much something, it belongs to the wonderful body of work that, he was talking about this Kung Fu TV show. It's really, really creative, and you can delight in it. I'm not so sure that's where I'd go if I wanted to sort of inform my own practice, though I'm nothing against it. It's a classic. I would read One Blade of Grass, um, Henry's book. I think if you want something that is, more in the line of literature, but truly about this practice, I think that's a great place to start. And there are some others like that. We've had Natalie Goldberg uh, at Mountain Cloud a number of times. She's a great friend of Henry and of Mountain Cloud. And if you have any interest in writing and in Zen, she's got some great books on that. And some of her other books are also places that you could look. There's so much to read now. Um, I'm my Kindle overfloweth. Um, so yeah, apart from what's listed, what I've said, um, Robert Aitken has some classics. There's so many new books. I would be happy to be in touch and, send some more recommendations. I really thoroughly enjoyed Natalie Goldberg's Three Simple Lines, which is her recent book about haiku and Zen. And, if you're interested at all in poetry, that was really resonated also with practice. Um, it just depends what kind of intro book you're looking for. You know, again, glad to say more in an email. And if you don't have my email, I'll type it in here, but always can get that from Johanna. How about one more?
Okay. Can you speak about guidelines about growing in Zen, given that I can't do 9 years in a cave? And this person also added, how do we work with teachers? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. How to grow in Zen, cultivate a daily practice, uh, plant a practice, find out, you may already be doing this. Very helpful, of course, daily, even if there's a way to have it at the same time every day or the same period of the time of the day. I mean, somehow, so it's just woven into your schedule. And as time allows, I'll let that expand. Um, I think there's nothing more important than sitting, and it doesn't have to be 9 years in a cave. This is a lay, uh, the beauty of Sambo Zen is a lay practice. So we are practicing on the cushion and in the world. Um, and practice is really around the clock. Um, something about, I'm sorry, was there a question in there about a teacher? Christian. Oh, how do we work with teachers? Can you talk about that? Yes. Check out, if it's at Mountain Cloud, you can, be in touch with me or with Henry. Either way, either one. And once a student gets going, it's okay to see both of us. I'm available to get started. It's you start, and then it's really important to find someone who you're comfortable with. And then once you do, you commit. And it generally starts with at Mountain Cloud, at least, we have this luxury of scheduling longer, individually scheduled 15 minutes, 30 minutes, up to 45. Some students do an hour every so often. Of course, right now it's all online. And it's a serious practice focused conversation. With that amount of time, again, this lay practice, it may, to the extent that you wish, to bring in your life, those pieces that feel very connected to your practice. Once that gets going, then I offer Doksan right now 2 days a week, and it's easy to sign up. There usually are openings. They're 10-minute increments, and lots of students just check in regularly, whether you're wherever you are in your practice. Just a check-in can be a weekly check-in for 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes. And that can be extremely helpful. I valued that so much with my own teacher. That level of support, of mirroring, of just checking, accountability, really, really helpful. Okay. I'm going to save this chat now, and I will either respond in person or find a way to pass on these questions so that nothing goes unheard and without a response. Thank you all so much for your questions and for this remarkable shared practice. This Zoom Zendo doesn't have any walls. So thanks for that.